webinar on SAKI site coordinators, roles, and responsibilities. For this webinar, our presenters will include Laura Engel, Keely Crowley, and Nani Grimmer. Laura currently serves as a site coordinator for the FY 2015 and 2016 SAKI grants for the Mobile Police Department in Mobile, Alabama, and she is also their grants administrator. She served as the state representative for the U.S. Senator Richard Shelby for over 15 years and as a grant peer reviewer for the U.S. Department of Justice. She holds a master's degree in public administration from George Washington University. Keely Crowley with the Wisconsin Department of Justice is a Program and Policy Analyst Advanced in the Office of Crime Victim Services. She holds a bachelor's degree in Public Service Administration along with 20 years of experience providing direct victim services to survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. She is a site coordinator for the 2 BJA SAKI grants and the Danny grant that she co-authored on behalf of the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Her professional duties also include staffing the Wisconsin Attorney General's Sexual Assault Response Team and providing training for law enforcement professionals on the dynamics of sexual assault and domestic violence, trauma-informed care, and multidisciplinary response. Nani Grimmer with RTI International is a Senior Project Management Specialist and is currently the Program Manager for the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative Training and Technical Assistance Cooperative Agreement. She has over 10 years of experience working on government contracts as a forensic DNA analyst and forensic research scientist and has over 5 years of federal contract program management experience. I'd like to welcome all of our presenters and attendees, and at this time I will turn it over to Nani for her presentation.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, everybody, for joining me on this webinar. To those of you who joined me last month for the Grant Management webinar, welcome back. This presentation is going to be a quick overview. It actually might contain duplicate information that you've already heard in that webinar, but I did want to explain how the SAKI Site Coordinator can work in collaboration with the SAKI Site Grant Manager. So there is a requirement for the Site Coordinator position in all of your cooperative agreements, and that is due to the fact that BJA considered the site coordinator to be essential to the comprehensive model required to address the issue of unsubmitted sexual assault kits. And the responsibilities of that position include to be the central point of contact for the SAKI site teams, fostering and coordinating communication, and then, of course, the commitment to institutionalizing all of the SAKI team's developments. As part of the site coordinator communication activities, you're going to be involved in communicating not only with BJA directly, but also with the SAKI TTA team, specifically the site liaisons, as well as some of the subject matter experts. You'll also be the point of contact for your MDT representatives, as well as communicating with your other SAKI site coordinators. All of these communication platforms that you'd be involved in puts you in a unique and actually, quite frankly, a very critical position to oversee all of your SAKI site's technical activity. Because you have that oversight on the SAKI site, you need to work in collaboration with the grant manager who, if this is a separate position at your site, is not going to be as up-to-date on everything that's going on your day-to-day activities. So what the SAKI site coordinator needs to do is provide the grant manager with up-to-date information on programmatic activities, including whether or not you're thinking about hosting a training or a technical assistant event, if there's any changes to your personnel staffing, especially key personnel, changes to any activities, specifically those that are called out in your proposal, the need for budget modifications. Say if you wanted to institute a travel to a training, the grant manager will need to know to make sure that there's enough travel funds within the travel bucket to send the individuals you'd like to send, and if not, they would have to issue a GAN in order to shift those funds around. BJA is actually also relying on you to make sure that all of the work products that are coming out of your SAKI cooperative agreement are approved for publication prior to them actually being published. So again, in your communication with BJA, you're going to want to work through the process in order to get that approved. And then last but certainly not least, especially recently, there have been a lot of media requests. And as SAKI site coordinators, you're going to be the first line to start answering to some of these media requests. And again, with all of these activities, these actions may require prior approval from BJA, to which you will have to work with your grant manager in order to make that happen. So quickly, just to go over conference costs, requests, and reporting, all cooperative agreements must receive prior approval for all conferences, meetings, trainings that qualify as such by OJP. The site coordinator should help out their grant manager by referring to the 10 questions on the conference and event submission form to determine if the event that they're trying to plan will ultimately need approval. If it's deemed that prior approval is not required for your event, you're going to have to work with the grant manager to appropriately fill out those 10 questions so that the grant manager can keep it in your folders for audit purposes. And then the site coordinator will also have to monitor the event for additional costs or logistics that may actually change the answers to those 10 questions. They then should report any changes to the grant manager, as well as, on top of this, also coordinating with the SAKI TTA team if they're doing a joint submission. When prior approval is required for a conference event, again, the site coordinator and the grant manager need to work in very close collaboration. One, with first setting a realistic date. Conferences costing more than $100,000 should be submitted to BJA for approval within 90 days of the first deadline of signing contracts. If it's over that threshold, it should be submitted 120 days in advance of the first contract signing deadline. They also need to make sure that all of the logistical staff that are helping to plan the event are aware of cost thresholds involved with the conference event approval process. And again, like I said before, coordinating with the SAKI TTA team as necessary to host your event. And as a reminder, no contracts can be signed for an event until you've obtained approval from DOJ. I mentioned GANs previously. A Grant Adjustment Notice, or GAN, is used to request project changes or corrections from BJA. The types of GANs that should be submitted for approval include budget modifications, as I stated before, a change of programmatic scope, a change in a project period, and specifically the removal of key personnel. And just as a reminder, the GAN review time varies depending on the request, and it also can require many different levels of approval. So as soon as you know that a GAN should be submitted to BJA, a site coordinator is going to want to relay the information to the grant manager and work with that grant manager so that all of the information is there so that when they submit the GAN, it can be approved as soon as possible. I also wanted to note the special condition that's in everybody's cooperative agreement regarding publications, and that publication statement basically states that this disclaimer that you see up here on your screen needs to be on each one of your work products prior to it being published, and then it also needs to go through a review process. So again, the responsibilities for a publication review. This individual should really start the initial communication with BJA in order to get it reviewed via email and get any edits via email. That will limit the amount of times that it has to be put into GMS for approval. Ultimately, the site coordinator should make edits as requested and then send the final version that's approved to their grant manager so that their grant manager can then upload it into GMS for their program office approval. As I said before, all publications must include the appropriate statement as written in your special conditions of your contract. And as a reminder, SAKI TTA, if we're going to disseminate any of your site's work products, they must receive all the required approvals prior to us disseminating them. If the publication does require feedback from the Office of Communication, it will require additional review time, so just work that into your schedule. And Very important, any use of the official SAKI logo does require the approval of both the SAKI TTA team and BJA. Media requests. All SAKI-related media requests should be directed to the Office of Justice Programs Office of Communication, or OCOM. The responsibility of the site coordinator is to provide the media representative with the following information for Joan LaRocca, who is the point person for all of the SAKI communications at OCOM. During your communication with Joan LaRocca, you should also inform your BJA grant manager, who is going to be either Don Hill or Mila Hago, and your site liaison of the media requests and the reach out to OCOM. For request tracking, we do ask that you CC your BJA grant manager and your site liaison on any email communication with OCOM so that we can monitor the responsiveness of OCOM. Depending on the number of media requests coming in, we may have to be the ones to reach out to OCOM to get a response if you're not hearing something within a reasonable amount of time. You'll also be receiving in the near future some guidance from the SAKI TTA team related to media requests, only because there's been an increase in the number of media requests that we're seeing. You should work with your site liaison to generate fact sheets for OCOM's approval and usage. This can also go through the Publication Program Office approval process in order to get the information out sooner as well. So Laura and Keely are going to give you way more information about the actual roles of site coordinators, but if you have any questions about how the site coordinator can work better with the grant manager, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at the SAKI TTA team. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Nani. At this time, I will turn it over to Laura Engel for her presentation.
Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, and we appreciate you guys being with us on the webinar this afternoon. We want to kind of give you an overview of some of the roles and responsibilities of the site coordinator. We have received 2 SAKI grants here at the City of Mobile and Mobile Police Department. We were awarded $828,000 for the FY15 SAKI grant for the inventory of approximately 1,793 sexual assault kits, the investigation of cold cases, as well as the evaluation of departmental policies and procedures. The FY16 SAKI grant, we received a little over $118,000 specifically for the renovation of the police department's sexual assault kit evidence storage room. Currently I'm the site coordinator for both of the grants. We had discussions on how we were going to decide who would be the site coordinator for our grant. Currently I am the grant administrator for the City of Mobile and the Mobile Police Department. So it was kind of a good fit since the grant would be managed by myself here within the department. The advantage of that was that I could coordinate, both the federal grant side as well as with the multidisciplinary team. The site coordinator for, I'm sure you know already, should be someone who is a person who's very well organized and a multitasker, because it's going to be a full-time job for you. It will be pretty much a unspoken roles of the site coordinator. There are 3 different ones. You're going to have a full-time job as an administrator, a communicator, and a facilitator. Some of these, as an administrator, you will have some of the roles and responsibilities. The person who's going to serve as a site coordinator should be decided upon early in the grant project if it's not already included in your application. The selection and establishment of the site coordinator is critical to the success of your grant. This is because this person is going to be basically the clearinghouse for all of the requests that come in from all of your partner agencies, all of your MDT members. They're going to spearhead the creation of that MDT team. If you have any questions that are coming in, you're going to be the person that's going to facilitate getting those answers for your team. You'll be the central point of contact for SAKI TTA and for the multidisciplinary team. Some of the issues that we faced were that we had many partner agencies that we were working with, and the number of questions that were coming in sometimes could be overwhelming, and in order to control that flow of information and those questions that were going up to TTA, we made it where all of those questions came through me and then went up to TTA for answers. Within the administrative function as well, you will find that administrating the entire project, you're going to be responsible for administration and oversight of the entire grant project, oversight of the MDT meetings. One of the most important jobs is basically the oversight of that meeting. You're going to be the engine of the project. So without frequent meetings, the momentum and the information sharing of the project is lost. Creation of all the forms that you're going to need, agreements, you're going to be critical to making that happen. Your MOUs, your privacy certifications, IRB agreements, data sharing agreements, all of those things will be coordinated with you as well as with your partner agencies. And as such, you're going to be instrumental in making sure that those are taken care of, that you're the primary person that's controlling that flow of information back and forth between the MDT and between those agencies. All of the programmatic and financial reporting, performance measures to BJA on the quarterly, semi-annual, and annual basis, documentation of personnel changes within the applicant agency, creation and maintenance of training databases. We found within our 16 grant, SAKI grant, basically the SAKI coordinator is responsible for coordinating the renovation of that evidence room. So, it's not only, we're working with contractors and outside vendors. So if you actually applied for funding for renovation of your evidence storage room, you are going to be basically the person that's going to coordinate all of that outside contact within your department as well as with SAKI TTA. One thing we tell everyone in regards to the SAKI grants is document everything. It may not seem important at the time, but the information is probably going to be needed at a later date by you, by your MDT, or by your research partner or your research team. And then as we're moving through too, especially as an unspoken role of as an administrator on the grant, you need to remember that the project has to be victim-centered and trauma-informed, and this should be, every task you undertake, this should be a litmus test for you as you're going forward, whether it's in your MDT meetings, in discussions about forms, policies, procedures. That at the end of the day, that should be the ultimate litmus test for you is, are these documents, are these policies, are these procedures, how we're handling this grant within the MDT, does that meet that requirement? Another role that you'll have, of course, within the grant is a communicator. The communicator will be responsible for fostering coordinating communication among the team members and ensuring that the team is meeting its milestones. The site coordinator must also demonstrate willingness and commitment to institutionalized systems, policies, and protocols developed by the MDT working group to address the backlog of unsubmitted sexual assault kits and prevent the problem from reoccurring. The site coordinator is going to be responsible for referring questions about the grant to SAKI TTA for answers. This part is very important for your entire SAKI project. The site coordinator should be that person whom everybody on the MDT is going to turn to in order to get answers. It's not that the site coordinator is going to have all the answers, but they will be able to get the answers. This streamlining basically helps eliminate any duplication of requests for assistance to SAKI TTA while also keeping the site coordinator informed and in the loop on all the issues of the importance surrounding the grant. One of the most important things is the site coordinator has to know the work of all the other MDT member agencies at all times. It's very, very important that you know what's going on with your prosecutor's office, with your victim advocacy group, with your forensic science department, whomever you might be using for testing if it's an outside agency. You have to know what's going on with all of those different agencies so that you have an idea so that you can refer that information back to TTA at any given time. We also like to say that within the communication, the unspoken role of communicator, the agency's public information officer or their equivalent should be included in all of your MDT meetings. This PIO will be in sync with MDT on all the policies established for handling your backlogged sexual assault kits, as well as the possibility of any legislative reform actions that you may be undertaking. We have found that having the PIO there as we developed our community action plan, our community media services that we were doing with our victim notification protocols was extremely helpful. They need to be an integral part from the beginning if at all possible. Another issue that you may face as a coordinator is facilitator. And you're going to find that you're going to be facilitating many different aspects of the grant. You're going to be ensuring that the team is meeting its milestones, that it's preparing and submitting the MDT meeting agenda, the reports, facilitating meetings, following up on issues from those meetings, preparing and submitting all your requests for reimbursement from MDT members and contractors to be centralized with the accounting department within your grant. So if you are, if you're not actually the grant administrator for your grant, you're going to be, actually sending these to another agency or another accounting department or to your grant administrator, so that way they can go ahead and finalize those reimbursement requests. And you'll find that it is quite a task to try to undertake to gather all that information, have the appropriate documentation to get those reimbursement requests done. Coordinating and preparing for on-site visits from SAKI TTA. We had an on-site here in May of 2016 with SAKI TTA, and we had a wonderful visit from TTA. After that point, we had an action list of items that we needed to complete, and I recommend you do that. Once you have, gone through your 2-day visit with TTA, we made a list of everything that we needed to accomplish, our action items, what we thought were going to be the most critical issues moving forward that TTA identified for us, specific to your site. We developed an action plan and went forward for the next, year, making sure that those were done, and we've just about completed our entire action plan from that site visit. Coordinating work between the graduate assistants and interns of the research partner and team. If you do have graduate assistants that are working with your research partner, this is also an integral part. They provide a lot of service research to the grant. We have ours actually going through assisting our staff here, our personnel, with the case files, documenting, getting that data that we need, and then taking that back to the research partner and team, and that way we're actually getting up-to-date information at every MDT meeting, if not more on a more frequent basis. Serving as a liaison with the media on requests for information on the SAKI grant. Of course, we touched on that already. Basically the media requests, we've had 3 or 4 last week here for our site. We document all of our media requests, all of our media hits that we have that come out on local media, as well as report those to TTA. And then another role as a facilitator is ensuring that everybody plays nice. And this may sound kind of crazy, but if you're already a grantee, you understand what I'm talking about. You're going to have pushback from different team members or from different agencies just because of their particular position on things or their opinion. And you have to be that person to kind of smooth those feathers, make sure everyone stays at the table, and keeps everybody concerned about, reaching our goal of providing justice for victims. Next, be prepared. The only thing we could tell you is that this grant is a living, breathing grant. It's one of the few grants that I have ever worked on that actually is changing day by day, just about. The grant is phenomenal in that it is encompassing so much information and providing so many services for so many people, but the grant in and of itself, there's a lot of ebb and flow in regards to policies, procedures, things that come out from BJA. So, I think someone said at one of the conferences that it was like building the plane while you were flying it. And we have found that out over the past year and a half that is very much, that way. We have made policies, and then we have to go back and change it if things come out from BJA that may be a little differently than what we thought they would be. So just be prepared. The job of the site coordinator is a full-time job. If you do not have someone assigned full-time, I handle over 20 federal grants plus handling the SAKI. So it's very time-consuming, but it's very rewarding. But you just have to be very, very organized, and you have to have a lot of support staff to assist you to make sure that everything is documented and that we have a great grant product at the end of the grant project period. Be prepared for pushback from team members. Those team members, as you know, like we mentioned a little bit ago, they will have their own opinions of how things should be done. We had that when we had our site visit. We had some of our our team members who thought things should be done a little differently than what the experts thought. And so that took a little bit of time and getting them to change their mind, but of course, you know, the experts are the experts for a reason. Utilize the resources provided by TTA and Dr. Campbell. Don't reinvent the wheel if it's not needed, because you have years of work conducted by these experts, and take advantage of it. We have found that Dr. Campbell's work has been phenomenal in assisting us in creating victim notification policies, documentation, victim notification tracking forms for law enforcement. It is a wealth of information in her project materials, so I urge you to take advantage of it. Document, document, document. If you have not already bought a lot of binders, go ahead and buy a lot of binders. We have made it a practice here that we, every piece of paper that's generated from the SAKI grant, that we keep in binders, and then the researchers actually come back behind us, the research team, and we'll go through that and collect data, because there's a lot of, you'll be amazed just from notes, you know, from meetings, from phone calls, that may not be, you know, readily available, but once they go back through it and find those notes and collect that information, it's really, really vital to the project and its success. Another tidbit is just don't panic, consult TTA. If you have any questions, if you have conflict, we had some issues in regards to our CODIS policies, and we actually contacted TTA, and they put us in touch with Amy, and within a couple of weeks we had that situation resolved, and we have had some conflict about that for well over a year. So if you've got an issue that you don't think is moving forward to where you need it to be, then contact TTA, and they'll be happy to facilitate and get that squared away for you. And finally, the last thing to remember is, of course, that the project of course, needs to be victim-centered and trauma-informed, and at the end of the day, everything that we do with this project, every task of the site coordinator needs to make sure that what we're doing in our efforts are passing that litmus test, that, you know, all of our work product that's coming out needs to pass that litmus test and ultimately, you know, provide justice for that victim. And I think now we're going to turn it over to Keely.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and again, thank you for the opportunity to join you today. Amanda said my name is Keely Crowley, and I'm a Program and Policy Analyst Advanced in the Office of Crime Victim Services with the Wisconsin Department of Justice, and I'm proud to serve as the Site Coordinator for DOJ's SAKI grants. Before I get into it, just a little bit about our SAKI efforts. In September of 2015, DOJ was awarded $4 million in SAKI grants. $2 million was from a grant from the New York District Attorney's Office, which was provided funds for us solely for the testing of the unsubmitted kits in our state. The other $2 million was a grant from BJA, which was to form a sexual assault response team within the Wisconsin Department of Justice to assist and support local jurisdictions with any investigations or prosecutions that resulted from the testing of these unsubmitted kits. Victim Services Specialist is also a part of this team to assist with victim notification and to provide advocacy support and referrals for any survivors that we may interact with. And we're also very fortunate to have a research analyst on the team who is just an invaluable part of the project. We refer or identify our project as a comprehensive statewide initiative. So I think we are unique among some of the BJA grantees that we are doing this on a statewide level. And again, we refer to it as a comprehensive statewide initiative because we are working with 556 local law enforcement jurisdictions throughout Wisconsin's 72 counties. We're proud to say that we've just completed our statewide inventory, which included reviewing over 6,000 unsubmitted sexual assault kits in the custody of law enforcement. In this inventory, we asked for a great deal of information regarding the kits, as there is, I'm sure you're already finding out, a substantial amount of data that we need to collect for our BJA and our DANI grant reporting. In addition, we wanted to make sure that we had as much information as possible on each of the kits so that we could ensure that we were only testing kits where the victim reported to law enforcement and consented to having their kits tested. We took on, I'm sorry, I'm completely forgetting to flip through my slides. I apparently cannot talk and work slides at once, so I apologize for that. We at DOJ felt that we were uniquely equipped to respond as a statewide effort because in-house here we have my office, the Office of Crime Victim Services. We have our Division of Law Enforcement Services, which oversees our state crime lab, which oversees our training and standards unit that provides training and technical assistance to our law enforcement agencies. We have a Division of Criminal Investigation. We have a Division of Legal Services, and we also house our statewide Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner Coordinator. In addition to that, we have really strong collaborations with our state coalition against sexual assault, as well as our local advocates who are serving communities in local sexual assault service provider agencies. So finally, I just want to talk a little bit about, when talking about DOJ, I really just need to give credit to an excellent team that I'm fortunate enough to work with on the project. So our actually grant manager who co-authored our two grants with me, Matt Raymer, again, serves as our grant manager, has a tremendous amount of grant management and project management experience that has been very valuable to us. Our Bureau of Justice and Information Analysis has two researchers, Chris Henning and Connie Kostelak, who have taken on the tremendous amount of data collection and analysis that needs to be done for this project. And as previously mentioned, I think are going to really provide some incredible data once we are a little further along into our projects. Our Assistant Attorney General helping on this, Gary Luman, who will be a resource for local prosecutors who have questions on prosecuting cases that result from unsubmitted kits, and our Special Agent Jeff Twing, who similarly will be a wonderful resource to local law enforcement. So really just need to give credit to the work that they've been doing, as well as the many others here at DOJ who have lent their support, guidance, and subject matter expertise to our efforts, and really do also need to have a special thank you to our Attorney General, Brad Schimmel, who has been very supportive of this team and of our SAKI efforts. So kind of looking, I guess, on what I would recommend for, I'm guessing a lot of you are new, relatively new. I know you've probably been in this position if you just received your grant last October now, a good 5 or 6 months. So maybe I want to share a little bit of some just general lessons learned that I found valuable for people sharing with me as I started as a site coordinator. You know, as Laura just mentioned, there are many roles and responsibilities that you are going to have to tackle, all of which are critical to the success of your project. But you can't do it alone. So I think it's really important to be strategic in identifying who in your department, your agency, your community, your state, whatever it may be, who do you need to support your efforts? So I'd ask you to kind of ask yourself, who are the decision makers? SAKI projects are intense and they're time consuming. Do your supervisors support the time and energy that you're going to need to devote to this work? As Laura mentioned, this is a full-time responsibility, and I know there's probably a lot of site coordinators out there who this isn't your full-time job. This maybe was tacked on to your already full plate. You need to have that conversation with your supervisors so they make sure they understand the support or the time, that you're going to need to devote to this work. If policy changes are needed, are the people who are in positions of authority to change policy, are they at the table? Do they understand the process so that if something needs to happen, they can take your recommendations and run with it? In Wisconsin, we learned that a significant number of our unsubmitted kits were from victims who had a kit collected from a same program but decided they did not want to report to law enforcement. So maybe law enforcement picked up the kit, didn't take a report, but they've been holding that kit in their evidence room, and that turned into, again, a substantial number of the unsubmitted kits in our state. While our administrator of our Law Enforcement Services Division saw that that was an issue, worked with our team and made it possible so that now SANE programs can submit a non-reporting kit directly to our state crime lab, where it can be stored until the statute of limitations expires or until the point where that survivor comes forward and maybe makes the decision to report. Again, if that administrator wasn't part of this process and wasn't a part of being able to make that policy change for us, we'd be still in the same position of these kits piling up. So who are the decision makers? Who are the budget approvers? It's awesome that you have these grants right now, but what happens if you find out that there's additional funds needed to complete the project? You need people who are there to understand, are there additional resources available, and do those folks that control the budget understand the value of the project? Who are the movers and shakers? And I think you probably all know who I'm talking about. You're probably thinking about that person right now, right? You know the people in your agency or your department who just get stuff done. My guess is that you all are the movers and shakers, and that's why you're in the role that you're in. But again, just because you're the site coordinator doesn't mean that you should be doing this alone. Find the people who are passionate about the issue and recruit them to help you. Connect with others who share your energy and your drive, and get them on board to help you make this happen. And finally, who are the partners and collaborators? Are your multidisciplinary partners at the table? Victim advocates, SANE, sexual assault nurse examiners, law enforcement, prosecutors, victim witness specialists, crime lab staff. They are all essential voices and perspectives that need to be involved in this process. While kit testing is obviously a major part of SAKI, we have to make sure that we're not just testing kits and then not following up after we get results back. We need systems and our system partners up to speed on what's going on so that they're ready to respond when we start getting results back from the testing of these kits. Especially important is to have victim advocates and law enforcement working together so that anytime there's going to need to be victim notification or engagement, that there's already a process in place, as Laura said, to do that in a victim-centered, trauma-informed way. You need to start having those conversations now so that when it's the reality that you need to deal with it, that you're all going to be ready to make it happen. Get to know your site liaison. I would say this if Amanda was not on the call. Amanda Young is our site liaison, and she is fantastic. She's a wealth of information, so I can't stress enough to stay connected to your site liaison. Excuse me. If you have a question, whether it's about your budget, your inventory, your activities, she can help you process and assist in any way that she can. Excuse me. I'm sorry, had to get some water there. If Amanda doesn't know the answer, if your site liaison doesn't know the answer, she's going to find somebody who does. I think it's incredibly fortunate that we are in a position as grant recipients, as somebody that we have a connection to our site liaisons. Not only are the staff at RTI incredibly knowledgeable, but the national experts that they have access to and who are working on and guiding this project is just unbelievable. I mean, come on, Dr. Rebecca Campbell, amazing work that she has done to inform just the SAKI process in general and the work that we're all doing. Ilsa Connect from Joyful Heart, Linda Ledre, who is, an expert SANE nurse and program coordinator. Jim Markey, who is a retired detective, who is, again, has such a wealth of knowledge in these areas. Representatives from RAIN, from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, Equitas, and so many more, these experts that are at our fingertips, through our site liaisons, is just such a tremendous resource for us all. Again, she's a great source of support and encouragement when needed. I'll say there are many times where, this can feel like a daunting project when there's deadlines and there's reports due and there's questions coming in from all over the place, and sometimes it can just be a little bit overwhelming. So Your site liaison is a great person to be able to go to when you maybe just need somebody to kind of give you a little perspective or a little support or just reassure you that you're doing a good job. She's there to offer a little boost to keep you going. So can't say enough about the site liaisons. Really encourage you to soak up all the information that's out there that we're offered. If there is a webinar, watch it. You know, these great monthly webinars, I'm hoping you all are finding some value from today's webinar. But there's monthly webinars for you to watch on a wide variety of topics. If you can't watch them live, they're archived so you can watch them later. I find it really valuable with our START team to watch them together so that we can benefit not only from the discussion that might happen during the webinar, but it generates some ideas for us to discuss among our team of things that maybe we need to look into a little bit differently. The SAKI TTA website has a ton of information. The archived webinars are all there along with a lot of other resources. So if you haven't navigated to that website lately, I would really encourage you to do that as well. If there's a forum, join it. If there's a thread that you have questions about, that you want to pose questions, if there's a thread where you've already done a lot of work that you feel you can offer guidance to other people out there maybe who are struggling with an issue, just get involved and participate. Ask questions, answer questions for others. Really, again, just be involved in what is out there and available to us. If there's any kind of training opportunity that RTI offers, take it, whether it's new information for you, whether it's refresher information, show that your site is engaged and interested, and actually really be engaged and interested. And some ways that you can do that, again, take advantage of every opportunity. We discovered when we had our 2-day site visit last year, 2 representatives from Kinetic Learning were part of the team that came to visit us, and they talked about an online START training program that they had. And it's a very informative program, talks a lot about START development, START responsibilities, and how to have a successful team. And not only did they offer our team here within DOJ free access to that, they also offered us the opportunity to extend that offer to any START team members around our state. So I can't tell you how excited people were about that I would think probably within the next month or 6 weeks after we extended that offer, about 150 people from around our state signed up and had the opportunity to, again, access really great information. We will also offer the opportunity. Amanda had reached out to me, I believe, last summer and said that there was a training team that was coming around and offering to conduct a 2-day scenario-based training for sexual assault response teams. Would we be interested in having a training? I said, absolutely. Didn't exactly know what was all involved, but was pleasantly surprised in the beginning of December last year when, again, we had experts like Linda Lodre, Jim Markey, Patty Powers from Equitas, Misty Mara from the West Virginia Crime Lab show up and for 2 days walk us through a very interactive scenario-based training from the time of a case study, from the time of the assault, through what an investigation looks like, through what a crime lab processing looks like, through prosecution, through the SANE exam. And again, not only was that for our team, but we could open that up to 5 other START teams around our state who all thought it was incredibly informative, gave them the chance to have some cross-training from, again, these nationwide experts that we thought was just incredibly valuable, that we probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to participate in if it wasn't for us being a SAKI grantee. Our site visit, I know Laura mentioned that the benefits of that they took from their site visit. We did as well. We really took the opportunity to kind of look at it as our time to shine and really be proud of the work that we had done up to that point and to be validated, again, by these subject matter experts who were saying, you know what, you guys are on the right track. You're doing some really good work. Here are some recommendations that we have for you as you go forward. And just to make that face-to-face contact, to build that relationship, again, now that we know these folks are out there to support us in our efforts. We brought in our community partners throughout those 2 days. We brought in local law enforcement. We brought in local advocates. We brought in staff from our state coalition and really showed that we are, again, tackling this statewide initiative in a multidisciplinary fashion. So utilize that site visit as a way to show off what great work you're doing and to get some really constructive, helpful feedback. And then also finally the SAKI grantees meeting. I believe there's going to be another grantees meeting coming up in spring. Last year, 3 of our staff had the opportunity to attend the initial grantees meeting out in Washington, D.C., and it was a great opportunity to learn from other sites, to meet people from other sites, to share lessons already learned and some struggles and obstacles we had all been facing, to hear again from national experts, to connect our research analysts with other research analysts. It was just a really valuable opportunity that if you have the chance to go, I really encourage you to get as many folks from your site as are permitted to attend and get out there and really make some good connections. Finally, I really just want to congratulate you on your SAKI grant. We are really excited about our project here in Wisconsin. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we've come a long way. And as Laura said, it's a lot of work, but it's really worth it when we keep in mind why we're doing this. And we're doing this for survivors who had kits collected and who maybe are now wondering what happened to the kits or want their kits tested. It's such a powerful thing that we're doing on behalf. So again, congratulations and best of luck as you continue this important work.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Keely, and I'd like to thank Laura and Nani for their presentations as well. At this time, we will switch to our Q&A layout. If you have any questions for the presenters, please feel free to go ahead and start typing those in the chat pod. We do already have one question from Veronica, and it's how do you define a SAKI media request versus a local law enforcement agency media request? Nani, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So that's a very good question, and the best guidance that I can give you is that if a media representative is reaching out to specifically ask about your SAKI effort or the larger national scale SAKI effort, those media requests should be directed towards OCOM. If your local law enforcement agency is receiving a media request concerning your agency and your agency's activities, it's typically all right to mention the fact that your agency might be a recipient of a SAKI grant, but if more questions surround that response regarding the SAKI grant, again, that should be directed towards OCOM. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you for that, Nani. If there's follow-up, please feel free to go ahead and type that in the chat pod. We did have a question from Bobby. Can you talk more about the role of the victim advocate in SAKI? Laura, would you like to take a stab at this one first, and then we can have Keely join in as well?
Sure. The victim advocate's role within our SAKI site has been one. The prosecutor's office, the victim advocate, as well as our forensic science testing lab here have all been working very closely together. The victim advocate actually attends all the MDT meetings. They have gone to the national trainings. We recently had the SART training here as well, the on-site. And we work almost on a daily basis with our victim advocate. They have assisted us in creating the victim notification policy within our department, which is now part of our standard operating procedures. They actually have gone through and assessed what deficiencies we had when we were actually notifying victims. They were there with the research team along with our investigators, doing mock interviews before we actually started our victim notifications. They helped us create our community media plan so that it was victim-centered and trauma-informed. We have several of victim advocates on our MDT team. So they're a very integral part in what we do, almost like I said, on a daily basis. They have created a set of victim resource materials that we use now that are in place not only here within the police departments, but also in different locations around the city. They are responsible for housing our victim notification resource books that we have, as well as our hotline that we use. Anyone that wants to call in about the status of their kit, they can contact either the police department directly, or they can contact the victim advocate and Rape Crisis Center. The hotline rings directly to them. They take down the information, and then that is given directly to the investigators. So that role that they play in regards to that, as well as going out and actually doing the victim notifications, working with the investigators, coaching them on, because a lot of our investigators have had dual roles with, actually working assaults as well as sexual assaults, and having to switch from back and forth from that role of investigating different types of cases. They've assisted them in how, being more victim-centered in their approach. So they've been very, very helpful and just a crucial partner. We could not have done what we've done so far without them.
And I would echo that. I think everything that you said regarding providing the direct services to just informing the process, yeah, very much agree.
Great. Thank you both for that. We also have a question from Sarah on how do you define a publication that needs approval?
So this is Nani. The special condition within your contract defines it as curricula, training materials, proposed publications, reports, or any other written materials that will be published, including web-based materials and website content. Basically, it's a good general rule that if you're creating any type of work product that will be publicly disseminated, it's going to be considered a publication or published. And by publicly disseminated, I do mean outside of your working group or outside of your entities that are combined through an MOU. If you need further clarification, please let me know.
Thank you, Nani. We still have time for questions, so if anybody else has any questions for our presenters, please feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat pod. Dewana asked to describe the role of the site liaison. So since I'm a site liaison, I will answer this one, and then I'll let Nani chime in as well. So I currently have 8 sites that I work with, and so my role is to work with each of the different sites and make sure that they are getting the training and technical assistance they need, answer any questions that they may have, and connect them with our subject matter experts as well. This can be questions on their victim notification policies and procedures, or how to work with their crime lab. So it's a very diverse role, and it differs with each site. And I think one of our big things is just to have a relationship with each site so that they feel comfortable reaching out to us and asking questions and asking for help. Nani, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Amanda, you did a good job of describing the roles and responsibilities of the site liaison. I just wanted to reiterate that your site liaison is going to be your main point of contact for the SAKI TTA team. They will also be your main point of contact if you are trying to communicate with BJA in a way that's going to take a lot of back and forth. They're going to be the one that's going to coordinate that for you so that you're not sitting there waiting on BJA to respond back to you. They're going to be the one that's running interference, making sure that BJA has all the information that they need, that you are getting the information that you need, they really are that bridge between you and BJA.
Thank you, Nani. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type those in our chat pod. We have a few more minutes. See, we have a couple people typing, so we'll give them some time. Dewana asks, is it recommended that the grant manager be a part of the multidisciplinary team?
This is Nani. Laura can probably speak better to this point, only because she is the grants administrator as well as the site coordinator. But in general, it can't hurt to keep your grant manager at least brought into the loop on what's going on with your MDT team. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, thanks, Nani. No, as the grant administrator for our department, as well as the site coordinator, it does help. It's not mandatory by any means, but if you do not have a site coordinator that will also be, that is also your grant administrator, I would say, yes, it is crucial. They don't need to be at all the MDT meetings, but it is crucial to keep them in the loop on activities of the partner agencies, especially in regards to, their budget, of course. Any activities that they're planning on doing, any changes, travel, anything like that, of course, the grant manager needs to be aware of all that. If they need to submit GANs or grant adjustment notices, any changes in the project activities, because this grant manager is going to be the person that is doing your performance reports, submitting your quarterly reports to BJA. So they need to be in the loop on what you're accomplishing, meeting your goals, making sure that you're on track, because ultimately at the end of the day, they're the one that is responsible to BJA to make sure that everything gets done in a timely manner. So I would say it's not, critical that they attend every meeting that you have, but it would be, if they can attend the MDTs, that's great. If they can't, if they are busy, it's not a problem. Just make sure that they're up to date on any and all activities that may be coming up or any changes that you plan. That's the most critical part.
Great. Thank you for that. Looks like we may have a couple more questions coming in, so we'll give it a few more minutes. We have another media-related question. If the media wants information on an individual case, is permission necessary?
Is it specifically related to an individual case and how, if it's related to how the SAKI grant helped that individual case, yes. If it's about the individual case, no. Media is a very gray area that is best served on a case-by-case basis, and I'm only able to give you a general guidance. So if you have a specific question, please reach out to us via your site liaison. Sorry.
Hey, Nani, this is Laura. Could I chime in real quick? I just wanted to say that we here in Mobile have had, don't hesitate to contact TTA or Amanda, your site liaison, whoever that may be, because they are more than willing to handle whatever questions you may have. And it may seem like a completely just very simple question to them. To you it may seem very complicated, but they will get the answers for you. We have, I communicate with Amanda probably almost on a daily basis. I think she gets tired of hearing from me sometimes, but we communicate almost daily, and I can tell you that she's back with information, almost immediately. She's really good. Any question, if there's a doubt about which way you should go on something, then just go ahead and send that question on up to them.
Thank you for that, Laura. Looks like we have one more person typing, so we will give them a few moments. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat pod. And so I have one from Lieutenant Summer and Dyke. So we are not good to at least put out on media releases that arrests were made with the help of the SAKI grant, or do we need permission to do that? Connie?
So I would suggest that if you have a media release already written up, that you submit that via your site liaison to BJA and OCOM for their review. It's a whole lot easier for them to review a media piece that's already written than it is for them to generate a new one just based off of a request that comes out. I can't necessarily speak to the fact whether or not BJA will want you to release that media release now. It's better to reach out to them and ask at this point.
Nani, this is Laura. We actually had a situation here locally where we had requests for information on the grant that came in from outside markets in the Northeast, and the request actually came into our legal advisor, which we then, questions were answered. Some of them eventually came to me, and then we were like, no, these don't need to go out. So you may have requests for information that go to completely different, areas within your police department, to your partner agencies. That's why we let the partner agencies know any requests for media, send them to your site coordinator. The site coordinator can then get those up to SAKI TTA or up to OCOM, and we can vet those that way because we don't need to, we want to err on the side of caution. So any media that comes, any media requests that go to our partner agencies, we have asked them to send them directly to me or to your site coordinator.
Thank you for that. We have another question from Lisa, and it's, we have a media calling our press staff weekly about this process. So do we need info on each request?
So we understand that the media, that SAKI is heavily in the media right now, and lots of sites are getting media requests, and we are working directly with BJA and OCOM to address this. Unfortunately, the current process right now for BJA and for OJP is to have all of the media requests sent up through OCOM. That being said, we are sending out a guidance document in the near future that will explain how you can better prep information for media release that can be approved so that media responses can be churned out quicker than having to flow everything up through OCOM. If you have weekly calls about your SAKI grant and your SAKI progress, please reach out to your site liaison so that we can get the ball rolling on your media response. Amanda, can I go ahead and answer the second question since I'm on the roll? Okay, the next question is, the award document says we do not have to submit press releases to BJA. Is this a change? It's not necessarily a change. Your press release does not have to have the disclaimer associated with the SAKI special condition as it's stated. However, the guidance still is anything having to do with the SAKI effort, because it is a cooperative agreement that is funded by BJA. Any media requests specifically regarding your SAKI cooperative agreement needs to go through OCOM.
Thank you for that, Nani. It looks like we have one more person typing. We'll give them a moment to get their questions in. So I have, if we have already sent a previous media request to BJA and our site liaison, do we still need to now send it to OCOM, or have our liaisons already sent it up the chain?
If you could reach out to your site liaison just to confirm. We just recently got this guidance from OCOM because we had questions about media responses. So to our knowledge, I believe most media requests have been sent up the chain, but please reach out to your site liaison to confirm.
Thank you for that response, Nani. I'll give it another minute for questions. And if you think of any questions after this webinar, please feel free to reach out directly to your site liaison or to the SAKI TTA team. We're happy to address those after the webinar as well. It doesn't look like we have anybody typing, so we can go ahead and move on to our poll questions. On your screen, you'll see our poll questions for this webinar. If you could take a moment and fill those out, it really benefits us as we think about future webinars. All right, I appreciate everybody taking the time to fill out those poll questions. We'll now switch to our closing layout. I'd like to thank everybody for attending our webinar today, SAKI Site Coordinators' Roles and Responsibilities. If you could take a few moments to complete our survey, it really helps us as we plan our future webinars, and for any technical issues as well, we can get feedback on those. If you need to connect with the TTA team, there's information on how to reach us via email, our hotline, and the website as well. We also ask that you like our Facebook page and follow the conversation on Twitter. We also have a YouTube channel where you can watch some of our videos. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions or concerns, and we look forward to speaking with you all again soon. Thank you, and have a great Valentine's Day.